program. Well, we want to wish you all the very best wherever you are, whatever you're doing right about now. Thank you so much for choosing WinFM, www.winnfm.com. And to begin today's program, we're very pleased to have with us the head of USAID. That's right, we have the head of USAID on the line, Mr. Clinton White. We say very good morning. Good morning to you, Mr. White.
Yes, good morning, sir. Good morning, Clive. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. What's the weather like in Barbados?
It's looking very nice here. The sunny, a little light wind, but very pleasant outside. How about there in St. Kitts?
Excellent. As soon as you get a chance to, open the borders, you should make a plan to come spend some time on St. Kitts. I highly recommend it.
I've been there once already. When I first got here, it was actually my first trip to visit St. Kitts, and so I'm looking forward to getting back as well.
All right, sir. Well, thank you very much for talking to us this morning. We wanted to know some more about USAID and what is being done in terms of the U.S. government's response to COVID-19. What support are you offering the Caribbean? And perhaps, by way of introduction, you could perhaps just give a little bio about USAID and the role you've played in recent days. And I don't have 5 days to give you to do that presentation, so I'm going to have to ask you to edit that, give us a summary. I know you're doing quite a lot.
Sure, and thank you again for having me on your show. I also want to first say my thoughts and prayers are with you and all the people there in St. Kitts, as well as the rest of the Caribbean, as we all continue to fight this pandemic, and that people continue to stay safe and healthy. What I would like to say in terms of the U.S. government and USAID, in terms of what we're doing specifically, is, we've got it. We've contributed more than $140 billion in terms of the U.S. government and global health assistance since 2011 alone, because diseases do not respect national borders. A healthier world means a healthier United States. And since the outbreak of COVID-19, the U.S. government has committed more than $900 million, specifically aimed at fighting the pandemic abroad, with more to come. We're saving lives by improving public health, education, and increasing health care, laboratory, disease surveillance, and rapid response capacity in more than 120 countries. And, it's a united effort of the State Department, the United States Agency for International Development, the Health and Human Services, the Center for Disease Control, and our Department of Defense. We're all working together as part of an all-of-America response to support health systems, humanitarian assistance, economic security, and stabilization efforts worldwide, with $2.4 billion in emergency supplemental funding by our Congress. And more specifically, in terms of the Caribbean, the United States has contributed health assistance to the Caribbean for years, more than $236 million in the past 20 years alone. And currently, we have mobilized all our necessary resources to respond rapidly to the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, $1.7 million has been made available through USAID to help 10 Caribbean countries. This includes the 6 OECS countries, Grenada, Dominica, Antigua, Barbuda, also Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenadines, Suriname, Trinidad, and Tobago. By scaling up our risk communication efforts, providing water and sanitation, prevent and control infectious diseases in health facilities, managing COVID-19 cases, building laboratory capacity, and conducting virus surveillance. We work and collaborate with UN here also in the Eastern Caribbean with its resident coordinator. And, for example, UNICEF is one of our implementers. And they're working with the Ministries of Health in St. Kitts and Nevis and other countries, also with the Ministry of Social Development and Education, across this region for the safe operation of children's homes and juvenile detention centers, development of action plans for schools, and distribution of critical hygiene and prevention items such as safe drinking water containers and disinfectants. We're also, as part of our additional work outside of the 1.7, we're also working with the OECS Commission on COVID-19 secondary effects. So this is leading a comprehensive media campaign, including videos and posters, equipping parents and caregivers with information to support ongoing learning at home during the COVID-related school closures. So we're very proud of that work with the OECS, especially as part of our early learning program, that working with not only the schools throughout the OECS, but also with the children within the effects of COVID-19. I also want to highlight in terms of more in the regional aspect of the Caribbean, but, the U.S. government, that funding that was provided to the International Atomic Energy Agency, they mobilized $6 million to provide test kits to St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, to help provide and contain the spread of COVID-19. And, these test kits each contain supplies for 2,000 testing samples, including non-consumable equipment that can be used to conduct additional testing, as well as a swab in regions that have been in high demand. We also have our Center for Disease Control and their Caribbean Region Office in Kingston, Jamaica, is providing $3 million to Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Caribbean Public Health Agency to boost its capacity to support countries of the Eastern Caribbean. So as you can see, not only is USAID and the work that we're doing continuing to do, but the writ large U.S. government is really, focused on working with the Caribbean. And even our Department of Defense, there was a recent announcement that you may have seen where they provided $104,000 in humanitarian assistance, working with SEDINA, the regional security system, and other partners to procure that valuable PPE protection equipment, which includes masks, swabs, gloves, hazmat suits, shoe covers, face shields, and goggles. And, we will continue to do this as we go forward.
Now, Mr. White, when you look at the Caribbean region, mostly islands, small states, dependent heavily on the movement of people. You may want to call it tourism. There's also trade. There's also the importation of foodstuff. What are some of the issues that you would want to share with us in terms of the COVID-19 challenge, the major challenges perhaps to the Caribbean?
Yes. What I would say is,
Hello, Mr. White. All right, we seem to have lost Mr. White here for a moment. We'll try to see if we could resume that conversation. I was asking him to comment essentially on some of the peculiarities and the challenges facing Caribbean economies and Caribbean people as they attempt to deal with the COVID-19 issues as they arise. So we'll see if we can make contact with Mr. White and continue that conversation. In the meantime, let's hear from our partners while we try to resume our conversation with Mr. White as well.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
The people's plan. Combo. Got a new combo plan. You can call anyone. No matter which network you they on. Just use your flow.
I want a combo, but not for my belly. I feel me cell phone, so me call anybody. Call Mr. Man, call Granny. On the island flow, come combo me.
Yes, there is no need for to force no more. Cause it flow combo plan, you're paying less for more.
Flow got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you they on. Just use your flow.
Dial star 129 $ to activate your combo plan today.
Fruta, taste the real Fruta. Enjoy the real Fruta. Refreshing juice of every day. Whoa, Fruta, drink the real Fruta. Your favorite real Fruta. The natural taste is Fruta. Fruta.
Your favorite fruit has got a new skin with real juice within. Drink the real Fruta. Enjoy the real joy.
Taste the real Fruta. Enjoy the real Fruta. Refreshing juice of every day is Fruta.
Fruta, juiced right.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 30 days of unlimited social messaging, 10 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, and 1,000 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $100. Keep your number when you switch to St. Kitts' most reliable LTE network. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
Well, a very good morning to you once again, and we're very happy to let you know that we're just about to resume our conversation with Mr. Clinton White, the head of the U.S. Aid, who is based in Barbados, and a very good morning to you once again, sir.
Yes, good morning, and I apologize for that. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I will continue to make sure.
I was getting worried for a minute, and I was trying desperately to get you back, so I was playing the theme, I was running around trying to get you back, so I'm glad you're here. We're just talking about the U.S. government's response in terms of helping the Caribbean to cope with COVID-19. And I ask you a question about the fact that the region's economies depend heavily on tourism and trade, movement of people. Many countries are separated by water. What are some of the specific challenges you may see for the Caribbean in terms of coping with COVID-19?
Yes, and you're right. This is a huge challenge that we're all faced with, and especially in the Caribbean, where you have economic diversification is very limited. As you said and alluded to, a lot is dependent upon tourism and other businesses. But this type of impact can really cause a lot of angst in the economy. As I said, the service sector that dominates, a lot of the economic activity and contributes, as much as 75% of GDP in some of these states. And the COVID-19, has a huge impact on the tourism sector. And some of these Eastern Caribbean states are also net food and energy importers, and could be highly vulnerable to the sharp price swings. So, taking all that in mind and what's happened, at least, one of the things I can say in terms of the U.S. government and USAID, in our partnering with UNICEF, they have come up with a report on the social economic impact of COVID-19 on children in the Eastern Caribbean. But also, as we begin to approach the hurricane season, the work that we do in terms of USAID as well as our other U.S. government counterparts has not stopped. Our work that we're continuing to do with youth continues on. The work that we're doing with early learning programs, helping, is still going on. Also, you may recall not too long ago, we made an announcement of $10 million of the Caribbean specifically on disaster resilience programs. So we'll be looking at, working with those national institutions and SEDIMA and others at CIMH to ensure that we continue to support our resilience, given what's taken place with COVID as well. There was also a $25 million launch in the Caribbean to help small and medium enterprises working in energy or renewable energy, but also, being available for these small and medium organizations. And that's also working with a local bank in Jamaica to provide that support throughout the region. And then we also have our energy resilience program, which is a $25 million initiative on energy security, where we'll be working with Caribbean states on increasing and scaling services, as well as looking at the cost and those shocks, to be able to withstand shocks, similar to what's taking place now. And so these are things that, collectively, us as well as other donors and our Caribbean partners are working toward in a time like this.
Well, no, thank you very much for that, because, the fact that the region is so dependent on tourism, the bulk of the tourists come from the U.S. of A. And, of course, there's some difficulties in terms of coping with COVID-19 in the U.S. and also Europe as well. And those are the two major source markets. I want to ask you about some specific areas, though, pertaining to slowing the spread of COVID-19. Can you talk to us a little bit about how U.S. aid is helping to facilitate slowing the spread of COVID-19, if not stopping it entirely?
Well, what I would say, through our programs, a lot of all these countries have, protocols and programs in place. And, our work and working through an implementing partner like UNICEF is helping to scale up, the risk communication efforts, which is very important. As I mentioned, providing the water and sanitation and the prevention and control of these diseases, as well as the laboratory capacity. And some of the other ways, more specifically, for example, UNICEF is now working with radio stations across the Caribbean, and I hope St. Kitts and your station are included on this, but providing messages about mental health and psychological, social systems, and helping and coping with COVID-19. Which is a very important aspect of this as well. And also, with UNICEF, we're also documenting and analyzing the impact of quarantines, isolation, and school closures on women, children, and families to understand what we can do better to support them. So as I said, these are the things, as well as what I mentioned earlier with the International Atomic Energy Agency, with the test kits, as well as CDC with helping fund infection prevention, laboratory systems and supplies, including testing kits and swabs. And as you may recall, one of the things is through the U.S. government, the Bass Centers Public Health Laboratory in Barbados, where COVID-19 test results are determined, opened in 2018, thanks to $6 million in financial support from the United States. So collectively, these are ways that we're supporting the countries here in the Caribbean on COVID-19.
And finally, Mr. White, I know you have a limited time for this particular interview. In the context of communities, local communities, how important is it to have the tools there to enable communities to be resilient, to enable communities to perhaps help with the recovery process and care for the afflicted, if you like? And what would be some of those tools in your view?
Yes. So, no, the communities play a huge role in this. I mean, we're all in this together, and the way that, the more communities are involved and engaged, it helps, everyone to fight and to mitigate the COVID-19. And I think, what you're seeing, a lot of the communities are following the standards that each of the countries have set up in terms of working and tackling COVID-19. But one of the ways that, more, in terms of an example, is with working like providing materials, and caring about the COVID-19. What are some of the things like the community we can do when it comes to the distribution of critical hygiene and prevention items? that's where they can work, providing safe drinking water containers and disinfectant and things of that nature, as well as helping, if you're looking at the impact of the quarantine and isolation and school closures, what are communities doing to help provide and spread that communication as well. And I think, lastly, one of the things I mentioned just a little bit ago is, the mental health aspect of it. And, with these materials and things that are being put out either via the radio or other communication, these are ways that communities can also help in spreading the information and working together.
Well, Mr. White, we'd like to thank you very much for talking to us in St. Kitts and Nevis on the Win FM 98.9. Of course, there's lots of talk as well that the tough days are ahead, because even though as countries try to balance public health with the health of the economy and may want to free up some restrictions to have some trade and some businesses, there are also concerns of a potential second wave when the borders are opened up to have the tourists facilitated, to have the trade facilitated. And certainly it's not going to be the way it used to be, Mr. White. Would you agree?
I believe, we're all going to be working under a new normal, is what I would say. And, we'll have to continue to follow the instructions, follow guidance, and mitigating plans as we continue to fight this pandemic for all of us. Any
parting thought?
Yes, sir. First, one, I would very much like to thank you again for this opportunity. And as we talked about, hopefully when borders do open up again and travel, I definitely look forward to seeing you in person when I come to St. Kitts.
Excellent.
And then lastly, our ambassador here for the OECS and Barbados, Ambassador Tagliatella, she's been promoting her Stone of Hope campaign to highlight positive stories on how people are coping and helping others with COVID-19. And this phrase comes from Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech back in 1963, where he stated, out of a mountain of despair, a stone of hope. And, I just, ask all of you to continue to look at that and to see how you might be able to contribute, but also for everyone to stay safe, stay healthy, and together we'll work together to fight this.
Well, Mr. Clinton White, thank you so much, sir. All the best to you and your team, and thank you for talking to us today. Do have a pleasant day, sir.
And you do the same. And thank you very much, Clive.
Thank you so much. Sir. All right, take care. All right, that is the head of the USAID based in Barbados, Mr. Clinton White, speaking to us about the U.S. government's response and support to the Caribbean. And you heard the numbers, you heard the specifics in terms of what's being done. We want to say thank you very much, of course, for the assistance. Any help right now is appreciated. Still very much in early stages of the COVID-19 struggle in the Caribbean. Of course, governments are weighing options. Just how soon can the borders be open, and what happens when the borders are open? How soon can we resume trade? What will tourism look like? What will a bus load of tourists look like? Will it have the same numbers or less? What will be the design of the vehicles? I mean, there's so much right now that the best brains in the Caribbean are now mulling over the options and how best to restart the economies, if you like, without demolishing the public health system. You're listening to NFM's 90.9. The time is 26 minutes after 11 o'clock. You're in Voices. Our telephone numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. Our overseas numbers are 0333-344-0065, 718-285-6984, 305-921-4619. And these numbers are on our website, www.winnfm.com. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on WhatsApp. We are where you are. And the Prime Minister really gave a national address last evening to be precise. Of course, we're now fully in the election season. And of course, we heard from the Prime Minister. We've also heard from the leader of the opposition St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. What we'll do now is play for you the Prime Minister's address as presented by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris, where he outlined the successes of his administration in his view, and of course said that he told or asked, requested, yes, not told, requested, asked the Governor General, so S. Tapley Seaton, to dissolve Parliament effective Tuesday. Now, Parliament would have automatically ended today before the next election. Today is, of course, the 14th of May, Thursday, 14th May, 2020. It was the 14th of May back in 2015 when the first Parliament under this new administration was convened.
My fellow citizens and residents, it was on February 18, 2015, that the mantle of leadership of our beloved country fell on my shoulders when I was sworn in as the third Prime Minister of our nation of St. Kitts and Nevis. With the able assistance of my colleagues, I have endeavored to wear that mantle with commitment, distinction, and humility. My cabinet colleagues and I have dedicated ourselves to the task of delivering a better quality of life to all of our citizens and residents. We believe that we have been successful in great measure. Our record has shown that when faced with opportunities and/or challenges, we have always responded effectively and efficiently. We are proud of the manner in which we restored our country's good name, which was sullied before we came to office. The country had experienced a long and extended period of indebtedness, and we had been subjected to an administration that had no regard for the rule of law. Today, our economy is the best in the region. Our fiscal management of public finances has been second to none. We paid off $117 million IMF debt left by our predecessors. We have recorded surpluses and positive economic growth every year of our tenure. This successful management has allowed us to pay the public servants a double salary 4 years in succession and cater effectively to the needs of our citizens and residents during this period of global crisis. The World Justice Project Rule of Law Index has consistently placed us as number 1 in the OECS. We govern with sobriety and the engagement of our citizens. The administration of justice is alive and well in our federation, and we have experienced significant advancement in this area with the appointment of a second judge to the St. Kitts Circuit and the commissioning of a state-of-the-art courtroom at Sir Lee Elmore Judicial Complex. Your Team Unity administration has governed with thoughtfulness and compassion in every area and fulfilled manifesto commitments that were made in 2015. You will recall that we made the prompt payment of $16 million to former sugar industry workers. We removed VAT from food, from medicine, educational supplies, and funeral expenses. We also introduced the Poverty Alleviation Program and pay a monthly stipend of $500 to over 4,000 households earning less than $3,000 per month. These were promises made, and thankfully, promises we have kept. When we were impacted by the hurricanes in 2017, we rebuilt homes and repaired roofs. This has improved the resilience in the housing stock in our federation. More than 2,000 families have benefited from this historic program. We are particularly proud of our housing program. Never before has any government provided the type of housing here in St. Kitts and Nevis, both in quality and quantity. We have distributed thousands of house lots to our citizens and residents. We undertook the most significant public sector investment in our country's history. The construction of the second cruise pier, the $69 million resurfacing of the Island Main Road, also the reconstruction of the Old Road Bay to alleviate the long-standing dangers that were posed to travelers. The construction of the modern ferry terminal, the East Bus Line and West Bus Line terminals have received rave reviews. All this and more we have accomplished in 5 short years. We are proud of our spectacular performance in tourism development, the build-out of our ICT sector, advancement in education and healthcare, especially the provision for the first time of a cancer treatment unit at the JNF Hospital and our mental health care facility. My fellow citizens and residents, you will recall that when this Team Unity government assumed office, crime was rampant and our citizens were living in fear as homicides had reached an all-time high. Parents were burying their children at an alarming rate. Fear stalked the land, and many persons refrained from venturing out at nights. The economy was being negatively impacted, and we promised to aggressively combat this scourge which we inherited. I am proud that this country is now regarded as one of the safest places to live. Major crimes, in particular homicides, have fallen dramatically, and a new era of peace has been ushered in our beautiful federation. Another promise made, and another promise we have kept. While at present COVID-19 poses a threat to our future, we are confident that we are a resilient people, and with the right management of the country's affairs, we will continue to be successful. Working with you, my government has been protecting our people, our economy, and our islands from the worst elements of COVID-19. We must continue the fight. We are making good progress, but there is so much more to do in these difficult and uncertain times. Our early proactive actions by restricting travelers, enforcing quarantine, and closing the borders have undoubtedly saved lives during this pandemic and prevented our health system from being overwhelmed. Because of the tough decisions we took, St. Kitts and Nevis is now best placed in the Caribbean to recover. This is not by accident. While we must continue fighting this pandemic, we must also put our federation back on the path to a stronger and safer future. I can assure you that we have a plan. It is a plan for a stronger economy, where our jobs are secure, our streets are safer, and our future is brighter. The plan acknowledges a greater role for agriculture. We are providing farmers free seeds and seedlings, free harrowing services, and a financial grant for loss of their animals. We have provided additional lands for food security. The plan is about being at the cutting edge of ICT. It is about empowering our young people. That is why we have procured nearly 2,000 ICT devices for our students and teachers to facilitate e-learning. The plan includes getting our tourism plant back on the incredible growth trajectory in cruise and stayover visitors experienced only under Team Unity. The plan involves the continuing development of our infrastructure. My fellow citizens and residents, we are living in unprecedented times which none of us has ever experienced before. My government is committed to keeping all of our people safe. The health of our nation is and will remain our number one priority. We know that we are all in this together, and in unity we shall overcome this challenge. We are a country governed by laws, and our Constitution is our supreme law. Our Constitution is very clear. Every Parliament shall continue for 5 years from the date of the first sitting of the National Assembly after an election, and shall then end unless sooner dissolved. It is now almost some 5 years since that first sitting, and I have yesterday advised His Excellency the Governor General, Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, to dissolve the National Assembly as from Tuesday the 12th May 2020, and he has graciously consented. The next election will bring certainty to our federation, preserve our democracy, and allow us to continue to deliver a brighter future, creating employment and prosperity, building bigger homes, and keeping us safe. Let us stay together and see this through. In this election, you will have a clear choice. You can go forward to a safer and brighter future with Team Unity, or backwards to the past, which you rejected in 2015. I know that our federation will be safer and stronger with Team Unity. I invite each and every one of you to consider these elections seriously, soberly, and with maturity. Keep the peace and stay out of trouble. When it is over, let us overcome and rise above our partisan differences and combine our energies to the task of building our beloved nation for the benefit of every man, woman, and child. My fellow citizens and residents, I thank you for the opportunity to serve you, and I express to you my willingness to serve you again as Prime Minister with even greater vigor and skill, steeped in experience and commitment. May God bless each and every one of us as we seek to exercise our sacred trust as citizens and residents of this, our beloved country. May God continue to bless our beloved Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I thank you.
The Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris, has addressed to the nation last evening, basically outlining the government's track record and essentially saying that, look, tremendous progress has been made by the Team Unity administration, pointing to their fall in violent crime, the management of COVID-19, economic development and surpluses, progress made. Basically, progress should be kept. That seems to be the thrust, in my view, of the Prime Minister's presentation, speaking as well, going forward, a greater role for agriculture and also rebooting tourism and infrastructure development, among other plans as well. You're tuned to Voices on Win FM is 98.9, and today's program comes to you compliments Rams and Flow.
Here comes the sun. Sun quick. Here comes the sun. Sun quick. Sunny flavors for everyone. Natural, tasty, full of vitamin C. The drink for the whole family. It's Sun Quick.
Sun Quick Drink Concentrate gives you 40 glasses. 9 delicious flavors to choose from.
Orange tropical mango.
Peach orange, orange apricot, black currant,
Apple, red orange, red fruit.
bursting with vitamin C.
Sun Quick.
Natural, tasty, full of vitamin C. The drink for the whole family. It's Sun Quick.
Flo's new combo plan, the people's plan.
Combo. New combo plan. You can call any anyone. No matter which network you dey on, just use your flow.
I want a combo, but not for my belly. I feel me cell phone, so me call anybody. Call Mr. Man, call Granny. On the island flow, come boom.
Yes, there is no need for to force no more. Cause it flow, come up plan, you're paying less for more.
No got a new combo plan. You can call anyone. No matter which network you dey on, just use your flow.
Dial star 129 number sign to activate your combo plan today.
You tune in FM is 90.9 on your dial. I'm Clive Bacchus, your host with Voices today. Well, we heard from the Prime Minister. Now you will hear from the leader of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, the contender in the race. He will be leading the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, probably a coalition as well with the Nevis Reformation Party, to take on the three-party coalition of the People's Action Movement, the Concerned Citizens Movement, and the People's Labour Party. And that coalition, of course, led by the Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris. And this coalition now led by Dr. Douglas, the NRP, SKNLP coalition. And here is his address as the country gets ready for the next general election.
Profound apologies for the interruption in this live video broadcast earlier. We are still attempting to understand the unexplainable technical difficulties that erupted. Nevertheless, I wish to address you as I was doing earlier. The next gen SKN Labour Party is very pleased that the outgoing Timothy Harris and his coalition regime have finally decided to follow the constitutional mandate and has announced the dissolution of our National Assembly of St. Kitts and Nevis. I find it absolutely disgraceful, despicable, and downright disrespectful that Dr. Harris would make his broadcast at 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening, more than 24 hours after he claimed that the dissolution became effective. This kind of sneaky and reckless behavior raises the question in the psyche of the nation. What else is Harris hiding? This announcement has been long overdue. The 5-year deadline since the last general elections has passed since February 15, 2020. Despite the many attempts by this regime to find loopholes to go around the Constitution, the loops cannot and will not hold. Today, the Constitution of St. Christopher and Nevis has spoken and has spoken loudly, with authority and with finality. The Constitution will speak again by August 11th this year, as the final curtain comes down on this deceptive and miscreant regime. I am very thankful that the Constitution is the supreme authority of our land and provides the necessary checks and balances that have frustrated Dr. Harris from further abuse of the National Assembly to perpetuate himself in office under the guise of the COVID-19 pandemic. For a government that has spoken so boastfully about its prospects for winning, the fact that it has allowed itself to lose the element of surprise and to let the clock run out on its term in office, it speaks volumes. The writing is in fact on the wall, and Harris and his government are mortally afraid of going back to the people because they know, just as we know, that they will lose. Today, the Constitution has spoken. The rule of law has prevailed here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and for this we are proud. Come that bright election day morning, the will of the people shall prevail in this our blessed country, our blessed land. The last 5 years have not been easy for our people. Rampant corruption, nepotism, and victimization have left many languishing on the margins of the national prosperity agenda. The Harris-led administration has had one focus and one focus only, which is to abuse the power afforded to them by the state to enrich themselves and their families, strip away at our systems of transparency and accountability, and to secure for themselves an unfair political advantage by suppressing opposition voices. Scandal after international scandal has diminished the esteemed office of the Prime Minister and tainted the image of our country regionally and internationally. The Harris administration has had all the time in the world, all the money that was needed to implement progressive policies and projects that would stimulate growth in our economy, enhance the well-being of our people, and improve the quality of life of every man, woman, and child. But instead, they have squandered all opportunities at every turn. All across our federation, there is a palpable sense that we are a nation in decline and we are moving in the wrong direction. Now, when the nation is facing one of the worst public health crises the world has seen in over a century, this neglectful, this incompetent, this uncaring government continues to fail our people. The public health response has been erratic and haphazard, with no commitment to mass testing that would effectively contain the spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus. Yet the pandemic has been used as a cover to justify what is really the political decision to impose a long 6-month state of emergency in order to limit the freedom of movement of our people and grant the security forces broad and sweeping powers of discretion and arrest, far beyond what is necessary to successfully cope with its public health impacts. To restrict those freedoms at the most important time for such in a democracy is a despotic act. Yes, by passing that resolution, Harris, just like despots in other parts of the world, has decided that we will have an election during a state of emergency. Maybe we are the only country in the world that will be undergoing this democratic process under a state of emergency. The mismanagement of the public health crisis has been compounded by the government's failure to implement a comprehensive and holistic plan to deal with the economic fallout of the crisis. The forecast for Caribbean economies, it is bleak. The United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean has predicted that the effects of COVID-19 will cause the biggest recession that the region has suffered since 1914 and 1930. Specifically, the International Monetary Fund, it has projected that the ripple effects of the global health crisis will cause GDP growth in St. Kitts and Nevis to contract by 8.1%. Given that the pandemic began to shut down global travel as early as December 2019, and the belated closure in St. Kitts and Nevis on March the 25th, 2020, the travel and tourism industry has been especially hard hit. The economic crisis it has spurred has disrupted the lives of our people indiscriminately and has had a devastating impact on every single business, large and small, and every worker, regardless of which sector he is in. As a result of thousands have lost their jobs. They have lost income. They are receiving no income at all in many cases. Countless others have been thrown into the breadline as a result of an inadequate government stimulus plan that has yet to put $1 into the hands of the people who need it the most. Our elderly, yes, our elderly, and our pensioners, the working poor, and those who struggle to make a daily living in the informal economy have been left to drown with no social net to save them. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the many fault lines that could severely and permanently compromise or cripple the sustainable development of our country if swift action is not taken immediately. Loss of jobs and slow economic activity could push more people deeper into poverty. Our healthcare system, which was already under unimaginable strain, may not be able to support the general health and wellness of the population if a second wave of COVID-19 cases were to arise. And so while all schools have closed and lessons have moved online, inequities and inequalities in education will be exacerbated due to unequal digital access and access to laptops and computers by teachers and students alike, a result facilitated by the government's unwise suspension of the one-to-one laptop program. Just as it has exposed the fault lines in our sustainable development, the COVID-19 has also exposed the considerable weaknesses and ineptitude of the Harris-led coalition administration. The national COVID-19 emergency response has excluded more people than it has included and has been devoid of the human empathy, the altruism, and the compassion that would truly impact lives. And so I advise that this is a very, very serious crisis, and there is need for serious, focused, and courageous leadership if our country is to adeptly navigate its worst effects and successfully bridge to better days. And so it is for this reason, and more than the upcoming general election is critical now more than ever before. This decision 2020 represents one of the most important decisions on leadership that our nation has ever faced since 1993. This COVID-19 imperative, it brings into serious perspective that vital need for a date for the election to be announced as soon as possible following the dissolution of our parliament. That is why our people have been disappointed, very, very disappointed, for only knowing that the parliament has dissolved, though belatedly. Setting a date for the election as early as possible is absolutely vital in order for the relevant authorities to effectively plan for an election day scenario that makes it possible for all registered citizens to exercise their franchise and for the voting process to be conducted in keeping with the social distancing and sanitization protocols required by this particular crisis. Best practices around the world testify that in order to ensure that elections are conducted in a manner that is free, fair, and inclusive of all voters, whether they are quarantined or not, whether they are sick or not, a national plan of action must be put in place as far as possible in advance of what is to be that day. To delay the setting of a date for the election is to put lives at risk and to erect barriers to the exercise of the democratic rights of the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. The pathway to eradicating the COVID-19 from our shores and reducing and mitigating the negative fallout of its economic impacts will be very, very challenging. It is therefore mandatory that the economic aftermath of the COVID-19 be managed by a government that has full powers in order to execute a long-term strategy for economic recovery. St. Kitts and Nevis cannot afford to deal with the impending economic recession without a legitimate, competent, and compassionate government in place, one that can commit 100% to putting our economy back on track and getting our people back to work in the shortest time frame possible. St. Kitts and Nevis cannot afford to have the attention of the government to be split, or worse, wholly focused on securing its political interest in the upcoming general elections. Our people must come first over politics. Therefore, the sooner the general election are dispensed with, the better for our people. In places where the right leader has put in place the right policies, the people suffer less.
An excerpt there from the presentation by the leader of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, Dr. Denzel Douglas, who's the contender in the general election and will be taking on the Team Unity administration and leveling several criticisms at the government in terms of how it's handling COVID-19, the borders, spoke about the elections and whether or not there's a national plan that will be unveiled and whether that plan will be unveiled long before the election date is announced. And of course, you'll hear a whole lot more. It's now the political season in full flight in St. Kitts and Nevis. And we now take a break now to bring you the headline news. We come back with more on Voices. Well, thank you for your time today, and you have a pleasant midday.
Found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the Win FM Headline News. The Win FM Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Dealing well with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. DLE Walwyn, people you can trust.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
The police have confirmed that they are seeking a suspect in relation to a larceny incident that occurred at a business establishment at Port Zante. On Monday, May 11, an employee at the establishment reported that at approximately 11:30 a.m., a male entered the store wearing a cap, sunshades, and a face mask. He reportedly requested a number of jewelry pieces to try on, then left the store with the items said to be valued at $11,000. Investigations into the matter are said to be ongoing.
The next election will bring certainty to our federation, preserve our democracy, and allow us to continue to deliver a brighter future, creating employment and prosperity, building bigger homes, and keeping us safe. Let us stay together.
Just one day before the St. Kitts and Nevis Federal Parliament would have dissolved automatically, Prime Minister Timothy Harris announced in a national address Wednesday evening that he had requested that Governor General Sir Tapley Seaton facilitate the dissolution of the House. The action, the Prime Minister told the nation, was in keeping with the dictates of the country's constitution.
We are a country governed by laws, and our constitution is our supreme law. Our constitution is very clear. Every parliament shall continue for 5 years from the date of the first sitting of the National Assembly after an election, and shall then end unless sooner dissolved. It is now almost some 5 years since that first sitting, and I have yesterday advised His Excellency the Governor General, Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, to dissolve the National Assembly as from Tuesday the 12th May 2020, and he has graciously consented.
Dr. Harris, during his address, made a pitch for re-election of the Team Unity three-party coalition, contending that the coalition's performance over the past 5 years deserves another term.
I can assure you that we have a plan. It is a plan for a stronger economy, where our jobs are secure, our streets are safer, and our future is brighter. The plan acknowledges a greater role for agriculture. We are providing farmers free seeds and seedlings, free harrowing services, and a financial grant for loss of their animals. We have provided additional lands for food security. The plan is about being at the cutting edge of ICT. It is about empowering our young people. That is why we have procured nearly 2,000 ICT devices for our students and teachers to facilitate e-learning. The plan includes getting our tourism plan back on the incredible growth trajectory in cruise and stayover visitors experienced only under Team Unity. The plan involves the continuing development of our infrastructure.
The leader of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, Denzel Douglas, is meanwhile arguing that the dissolution of the parliament was long overdue. He observed, however, that the rule of law has prevailed.
This announcement has been long overdue. The 5-year deadline since the last general elections has passed since February 15, 2020. Despite the many attempts by this regime to find loopholes to go around the Constitution, the loops cannot and will not hold. Today, the Constitution of St. Christopher and Nevis has spoken and has spoken loudly, with authority and with finality.
The Labour Party leader expressed concern over the real possibility that the election will be held under the current state of emergency that has been put in place for a 6-month period.
Harris has decided that we will have an election during a state of emergency. Maybe we are the only country in the world that will be undergoing this democratic process under a state of emergency.
SKNLP leader Douglas suggested that the coming election is more critical than ever and called for a national plan to be put into action to ensure free and fair elections under the current pandemic situation.
This decision 2020 represents one of the most important decisions on leadership that our nation has ever faced since 1993. This COVID-19 imperative, it brings into serious perspective that vital need for a date for the election to be announced as soon as possible following the dissolution of our parliament. That is why our people have been disappointed, very, very disappointed, for only knowing that the parliament has dissolved, though belatedly. Setting a date for the election as early as possible is absolutely vital in order for the relevant authorities to effectively plan for an election day scenario that makes it possible for all registered citizens to exercise their franchise and for the voting process to be conducted in keeping with the social distancing and sanitization protocols required by this particular crisis. Best practices around the world testify that in order to ensure that elections are conducted in a manner that is free, fair, and inclusive of all voters, whether they are quarantined or not, whether they are sick or not, a national plan of action must be put in place as far as possible in advance of what is to be that day.
With the dissolution of the House, the election campaign is expected to intensify.
In this election, you will have a clear choice. You can go forward to a safer and brighter future with Team Unity, or backwards to the past, which you rejected in 2015. I know that our federation will be safer and stronger with Team Unity. I invite each and every one of you to consider these elections seriously, soberly, and with maturity.
We in the Next Gen SKN Labour Party, we are confident that what is best for St. Kitts and Nevis lies on the other side of this crisis. And we are determined to find and hold on to the COVID silver lining. Similarly, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis can rest assured that hope, opportunity, and relief are on the way.
With the expectation that the general elections in St. Kitts and Nevis will be announced soon, the Nevis Reformation Party is indicating that it has not been impressed with the performance of the Timothy Harris-led Team Unity administration. NRP political leader Roberto Hector says he is very disappointed that the matter of electoral boundaries is yet to be settled this time around, despite the debacle that ensued in relation to that aspect of the general elections in 2015.
What of boundaries? Unity won on boundaries. This was a case that they took all the way to the Privy Council. The Privy Council then ruled that the election should be fought on all boundaries. These new boundaries, I would say, no court has overturned as yet. And so elections are due, and the squeaky clean unity government has not said a word on boundaries. And so the public is going to the polls not knowing on what boundaries. A new boundaries commission was put in place. But my understanding is that little has been done at that level.
One of the Team Unity parties, the Mark Brantley-led Concerned Citizens Movement, which runs the Nevis Island administration, is the direct rival of the NRP. Nevis Reformation Party's Hector suggests that the CCM and its coalition partners have failed to deliver on some of the election promises they made back in 2015.
Unity promised quite a bit. A lot upon which they have not yet delivered. Unity promised electoral reform, campaign financing. That too was a promise of unity. It is a feeling of many citizens that our electoral system was made worse under Team Unity. Public confidence in the system was lost. The electoral office, in my mind, is nothing but an extension of the political parties. You would recall that for 6 months, the office was closed, and we are yet to see the AG's report, as he put it, on corruption. Funds were wasted. Names were unceremoniously removed from our voters' list. And you would know attempts were made to disenfranchise our overseas voters.
The NRP claims against the coalition were made Wednesday at a Nevis Reformation Party virtual public meeting.
Political parties in the Federation have traditionally pitched political campaigns to citizens living abroad who are allowed to vote in general elections. Many, dubbed overseas voters, have arrived in chartered flights prior to or on polling day to cast their ballots in the 11 constituencies in the country. With general elections now constitutionally due within the next 3 months, the question of holding elections with closed borders looms. Member of Parliament Conrad Maynard of the opposition St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party was asked about the issue.
If we are in a situation where the health of the nation requires that there is absolutely no inbound traffic into our country, well, our constitution mandates that we have elections. However, given what we hear and what we have seen over the past years and even recently, is that there is great concern that there might be one standard for one party in government, and another standard for a party not in government. We saw it happen over even just the state of emergency, where persons were limited to their activities during the partial curfew, while the government members and their associates took advantage of the situation of the full lockdowns. And so we've seen it in a number of things across where there is great concern that it is possible that our borders can remain closed, but then somehow there are exceptions that only the government can grant.
Mr. Maynard emphasized his point on transparency.
So the point here is that whatever the position is, it must be a position that is transparent and clear to everyone and accessible to everyone on all sides. This is a democracy. We are supposed to have a fair, level playing field. That is how it is. Regardless of what transpired 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, we should always be moving to a point where our democracy becomes more equitable and equal access to everyone. So yes, of course, if, for instance, there is a major outbreak next month and it is deemed a health risk that the borders have to remain closed, then I think that determination can be made. But any opportunity that our residents or our nationals have to exercise their franchise, they should not be blocked.
Ambassador John L. Powell, the deputy political leader of the People's Action Movement, was asked the same question.
Regardless of what would have happened 5 years ago and 10 years ago and 15 years ago, the playing field must be leveled. And I'm confident that over the past 5 years, the Team Unity administration has done what it had to do to level that playing field. We pulled out all the backhoes and we leveled it because it clearly was not leveled before. As far as the ability to have elections is concerned, I think that it is very possible. I know some persons have criticized the statement recently by Denzel Douglas. If you could line up in shopping to go shopping, you can line up to vote. To an extent, I agree with that, provided that the necessary protocols are put in place, provided that the necessary facilities are put in place. I think that we are at a point in time where we can properly have general elections.
He also praised the work of the medical team and the fact that the country has seen 15 confirmed cases of COVID-19 with 14 recoveries and no deaths. I'm
so proud of the COVID-19 task force, led by the CMO and Mr. Abdiel Samuel from NEMA, as well as the federal cabinet, which is led by the Prime Minister, in their stellar performance in terms of managing this pandemic here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We're now at a stage where I believe there's only one outstanding COVID positive test out of 15. We've not had a new case in, I think, 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And so they have managed this situation and managed the country to such a point where we are now at a stage where we can probably have a general elections. And I agree, there need not be any reason to limit anyone's right to vote. I think if you're eligible to vote, you should be allowed the opportunity to vote, provided that we all abide by the necessary protocols.
Here now is Wednesday's COVID-19 situation report from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Hazel Laws.
Here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, to date we've tested 335 persons in the Federation. We have received 15 results positive. We have 15 confirmed cases, and we received 319 of the results returned negative. Today, we only have one result pending. It's now about 24 days since we announced our last case, and we are hoping that it remains like that. So far, we've only reported 11 cases on St. Kitts, 4 cases on Nevis.
Dr. Laws also addressed the issue of the number of people who are now quarantined.
Now, based on the data today coming out of our Health Information Unit, we have 52 persons quarantined in a government-assigned facility. We have 2 persons quarantined at home. We have 1 recovering case in isolation, and between January 23rd to present, a total of 760 persons have been released from quarantine. Now, I just want to reiterate that individuals who would come into country at this time, they must be quarantined. So quarantine is compulsory, and they must be quarantined at a government facility for a minimum of 14 days. They must be tested on day 14, and such individuals will be released from quarantine if they remain symptom-free, and once their COVID-19 PCR test would have returned negative.
PBCJ, I'm Carol Francis. As of Wednesday morning, 100 Jamaicans have recovered from the coronavirus COVID-19. The health authorities reported that 10 additional individuals have been released from care. On Tuesday, the island recorded 2 new confirmed cases, bringing the total number to 507. The Health and Wellness Ministry reported in a news release. Simone Absalom has more in this report.
A statement from the Health Ministry says one of the 2 cases is a female, aged 57 years, and the other, a 6-year-old male. They are both from Kingston and St. Andrew and are contacts of confirmed cases. There are currently 192 cases that are contacts of confirmed cases, including 95 that are contacts of employees of a workplace cluster in St. Catherine. 224 cases that are employees of a workplace cluster in St. Catherine. 26 cases are under investigation. As at May 10, approximately 3,022 people from the quarantined communities of St. Mary, namely Anoto Bay, Dover and Enfield, were assessed. 84 samples were taken, with 66 results received. Of those 66 results, 2 were positive and 64 negative. 18 results are pending. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom.
To alleviate the economic pressures brought to bear on ordinary Jamaicans by the COVID-19 pandemic, the government made compassionate grants available under the COVID-19 Allocation of Resources for Employees or CARE program. More from Gabriel Thompson.
CARE program compassionate payments were released on May 7, and since then there has been a run on remittance companies across the island. In the corporate area, thousands of Jamaicans have been huddling in queues for hours on end, with all protocols on social distancing thrown out the window. Chairman of the Special Select Committee of Parliament on Public Health during this COVID-19 crisis, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton addressed the issue at Tuesday's meeting.
It's a matter that has been discussed at the highest level, at the cabinet level. There have been some adjustments made, recommended and some made. For example, today, for the KSA area, the Western Union organization has been relocated to the national stadium using a series of windows. Persons have been referred, or the excess capacity have been referred there. I think that is going on as we speak. With health has been present. I've dispatched a team there to work with them to help to manage the social distancing issues and minimize or mitigate against the potential risk. Elsewhere in the country, the health authorities have been asked to communicate with the particular private sector entity to coordinate and to assist with some of that, crowd management, if you will.
St. Andrew's Southern Member of Parliament, Mark Golding, said there are identification issues for some of the claimants.
ID issues as well, Chairman. Persons who don't have their voter's ID for whatever reason, yet it hasn't been issued or whatever, or they may have lost it. Is there any alternative way that they could be identified for the purpose of collecting their grant? Can a letter from a JP suffice, or from their MP or councillor? Some flexibility around these issues. These are real problems on the ground.
I'm going to ask that we raise that with the minister with direct responsibility later on.
For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
This is Al Jazeera.
Candice Plain says she's making the most of the little food she has. She lost her job at a Johannesburg printing company when it was shut as the lockdown began weeks ago. With no income, she depends on government support to feed her 4 children.
For me, from the lockdown, it was really hard for me. Many a times it was really difficult because it was for a whole month. We had to wait for the whole month to get the child support money. So it was a struggle for me every day until we received the money last week. Last week I had to go to buy toiletries and buy chicken and stuff like that. To buy full groceries for the month. But at the end of the day, we're still struggling.
The mayor of Johannesburg says people in 1 million households don't have enough to eat. The national government in Pretoria has increased the child support grant, and it's created a special grant of $20 a month to help workers who've lost their jobs survive the lockdown. Government leaders say they're spending the equivalent of almost $3 billion on the unemployed and the poor. But even before the lockdown, 45% of Johannesburg's 5.5 million people lived in poverty. To make the crisis even worse, many workers have lost their jobs since the lockdown began. The government says it's handing out food parcels to about 2,000 homes every day, but it's simply not enough. Organizations like this one are trying to help fill the gap by handing out 2 cooked meals every day. Nuran Gain has run this food charity for 7 years, but says she can barely keep up since the lockdown began.
When I've started the feeding, we started with about 150, and it's turned over in a matter of a week after the lockdown to almost 400 to 500 per day. Saturdays I did 300. Right now we're standing on 1,200 on a Saturday alone.
The organization relies on donations, and she's not received any help from the government. Delia Jones has run this barbershop for 16 years. It's been closed for weeks, leaving 4 staff members with no work and Delia without any income. She's applied for a government grant but has not heard back. Instead, her customers help her buy food. With an economy largely stalled and no clear indication of when the lockdown will end, many are relying on handouts to survive. Famida Miller, Al Jazeera, Johannesburg.
That was the Win FM headline news, brought to you by KDP Enterprises, Caribbean Alliance, Carrie Brewery, CNC Trading, The Grange.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Dealing well with a local reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we've got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Delia Walwyn, people you can trust.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love,
Pure lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Found the sound. 98.9 FM.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
Local weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow, Friday, 15th May. Brought to you by Sweet Cane. Synopsis: the presence of a high-pressure ridge will maintain a dry and stable atmosphere, as well as a moderate to fresh trade wind flow across the area during the next 24 hours. Today's weather: partly sunny skies in general with a 20% or slight chance of a brief shower. Tonight's weather: fair to partly cloudy skies with a 20% or slight chance of a late night shower. Winds are east at 15 to 28 kilometers or 8 to 15 knots with lighter spells overnight. Seas 1.2 to 1.8 meters or 4 to 6 feet. Seas continue to be marginally safe for small craft operation. Today's sunset 6:35 p.m. and tomorrow's sunrise 5:39 a.m. This has been your local weather forecast, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow. Brought to you by Sweet Cane.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Why not stay in? Turn off the alarm clock and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz. For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 30 days of unlimited social messaging, 10 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, and 1,000 local anywhere calls and texts. With the always-on prepaid plan, all for $100. Keep your number when you switch to St. Kitts' most reliable LTE network. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss it. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this second hour edition of Voices, Win FM's talk program, where you can share your opinions on matters of national, regional, or international interest to you. I'm your host, Jermaine Abel, for this second hour. During this hour, we'll be discussing a bit of politics. Yesterday, we had a representative from the governing side in Guyana discussing the recount of votes there. For the first half of the program, we'll be discussing with the opposition their perspective on the recount. And for the latter half of the program, we'll be discussing a bit of agriculture in the age of COVID-19 and how we can deal with that. Don't forget, you can call in, share your opinions, create a discussion around what is a topic of interest to you. But those are our two discussions for at least this segment of Voices. On the line with us, we have former government minister of Education in Guyana and member of Parliament, Ms. Priya Manichan. Ms. Manichan, good afternoon.
Well, hello, Jermaine. Good afternoon to you, too. I hope you're staying safe in these COVID times.
I'm trying. Social distancing. I trust the same for you.
Well, we have challenging times in Guyana where social distancing, while we try to be safe, we also have the priority of making sure democracy reigns. So it's a bit of a challenge because, you have to balance both.
Okay. Like I told my listeners while I started the program, elections in Guyana, that was 2 months ago. Can you just bring us up to date from the opposition's perspective as to why is it that on the 14th of May, over 2 months, and we still do not have someone or party sworn into office at this point in time?
Right. So, any way you twist it or turn it, that would be highly unacceptable to the democratic world or to the people who love democracies. You can't have an election and 10 weeks on, we're still waiting on a result. It's not as though there was the inability of the Guyana Elections Commission, which is the constitutional body that manages elections in Guyana, to declare a winner. What we had was an attempt to rig the election and install a political party that did not enjoy the confidence of the people of Guyana. So what we had was a really good election day, very smooth, very transparent, worked well. And this is not me saying this from the opposition. We were relatively happy with what happened, but also we also had in Guyana a lot of observers, both local bodies, institutions, and organizations, as well as international observers. And every single one of them, without fail, said that the processes on election day, the electoral machinery, that worked really well. The electoral process was really smooth, transparent. People got to exercise their franchise, etc. So election day went well. And then 2 days, 3 days into the post-election period, that was going well also until there was an attempt to rig the numbers for a particular region, the one that hosts our capital city, in favor of the incumbent government right now. And that's when everything started to fall apart. So that's why we don't have an election result as yet, because there actually were 2 declarations made in favor of the AP and UAFC. Those are the people who are in government right now. But the court set aside, the High Court of Guyana set aside one of those declarations. And while the other one is still standing, the political parties have come together and decided that there is going to be a recount of the vote of every single ballot in every single district. That didn't come easily, of course. That came after a lot of pressure from the international community and the local organizations and the people of Guyana pressuring the government not to get sworn in on those results. In fact, we had warnings from the State Department in the same language, that anyone who benefits from these fraudulent results will suffer severe sanctions, and that the ABCE countries, that's America, Britain, Canada, and the European Union, were calling on the President Granger specifically not to be sworn in on the results that were declared by GCOM. Very, very strong statements. All of those our friends and allies and the people of Guyana, the pressure led to us engaged in a recount process right now. So that's where we are.
Okay, there's this notion or concern being expressed by some in the government or the governing coalition, as well as those from the public and some in the legal community, that there was no legal basis for this recount process. As somebody who's an attorney, can you speak to that?
So 2 things. Our laws are very clear. They can be a recount. I would agree that there should not have been a recount. GCOM should have done the right thing, use the numbers in their possession and declare, quash the declaration that was made, the rigged declaration that was made, and declare the winner, who would have been the People's Progressive Party Civic. That's all water on the bridge. We are engaged in a recount right now. It's very, very lawful. The laws provide for it very clearly. And that's where we are right now, engaged in that process. It's sad that even at this stage where the political parties, including the president and the opposition leader and the other new and smaller parties, agreed to a recount, that there would still be some questioning whether that was legal or not. But I believe, Jermaine, that is a foundation being laid for later questions in the court about whether this was legal or not. I am confident that the process engaged in right now is legal, because GCOM has wide powers to do as they think fit, that anything that will give effect to the will of the people during the election process.
Okay, so we had all the
legal... I said, water under the bridge right now, because we're engaged in that process. I mean, as of yesterday, 15% of the ballots had been counted, with 350 boxes open. It's going very slowly, but it's happening. And we're all engaged in that process. And I expect after this, I mean, I can't see that GCOM would engage in not only this lengthy but expensive process, and then not use the results from this process when they emerge.
Yeah, I understand you're saying it's water under the bridge, but let's say, for example, either party wins, the result is open to more legal challenges. So how can you guys deal with that issue?
Well, I don't think, when you live in a democracy, anybody could go to court at any point. That is part of what we do. And I would want to continue living in a place where people can take their grievances to court. Going to court does not mean you'll win. So if someone wanted to approach the court on the ground that this should not have happened, I suspect strongly they'll be shown the door very, very early.
Okay, moving away from that, coming out of the recount, you mentioned earlier about rigging, basically.
Yes.
What evidence is there to provide coming out of the early part, 30% or so, that points to an actual rigging of the elections?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So what happens, Jermaine, in Guyana, at the end of every polling station produces something called a statement of poll. What that is is a record of what happened during the day in the polling station. That is, how many people came, how many people voted for each party, how many votes are spoiled, how many votes are. So it's a record of what each political party that contested the election got. That record by law is given to each political party. It is also given to posted outside of the polling place. GCOM has copies. That is the official body, the Ghana Elections Commission. That is what is used to tabulate the vote, tabulate the numbers, and to determine who won the election. What happened was everybody had the count coming out of the polling place. And just so that you know, political parties know those numbers very early into the evening, because after an election, because they all have agents in those places, in those polling places, who come out with that document. And so by the next day, everybody knows in common parlance who won the election, even as you wait for the official announcement from GCOM. So we have that document, that record of what happened in the polling station, and then we have what was announced by the returning officer of GCOM. We have what was announced by that person as the records. And so the two did not match. So Mr. Mingo, who is the returning officer for District number 4, made declarations that sought to give the APNU, AFC, more votes than the people of Guyana wanted them to have. And so what we had was overinflation, if there can be such a thing, an inflation of the votes given to the APNU as compared to what was given to them by the people of Guyana in the polling station, so declared on the statement of poll. So it's becoming very, very clear now. In fact, yesterday, what happened was the OAS had a council meeting, and the ambassador for Barbados said to the council that the irregularities occurred not on polling in the polling places, but during the tabulation of the count. And so what he was really just verbalizing there is what happened. We had a very smooth day, and then when it came to the announcement of the results of one particular region, not the whole country, one particular region, we had numbers inflated for one party. Numbers inflated for one party over and above the other party. And so you're asking me how it is we know there was a rig. So we have a document that came out of the polling places, and then an announcement made by the GCOM official, and the two do not match. And if we were ever in doubt about whether they match during this recount process, which everybody has signed on to and everybody's accepting, we would hope, we are seeing very clearly that the statements of poll, that is the thing that we got on the night of the election, are matching the numbers of the statement of recount, and they are not matching the numbers, the inflated numbers given by the GCOM official. So let me give you one box, box number 4062. Statement of poll, we had for the APNU AFC, that's the incumbent right now, 182 votes. On the statement of recount, we have 182 votes for them. But the GCOM official declared 299 votes for them, which was an inflation of over 110 votes. This is the kind of vulgarity we're seeing. We've had 25 such boxes so far over the last 7 days. In those 25 boxes, we have seen an inflation of 1,874 votes given to the APNU AFC that the people of Guyana did not give to them. At the same time, while the votes were inflated for that political party, votes were taken from the People's Progressive Party, that's the party I belong to, who actually won the election. So in that same box, 4062, the people of Guyana gave the People's Progressive Party 43 votes. That was recorded on the statement of poll. In the statement of recount, we have 43 votes recorded. That's where everybody sat down in the public's view and counted those back over the last 7 days. But Mr. Mingo gave us, the GCOM official gave us 33 votes, which took 10 votes away from us. That has been consistent. And like I said, so far we've come up with 25 boxes. And in those 25 boxes, we've lost, or the other party has gained 1,874 votes that the people never gave to them. So it's the recount process is very telling. It's disclosing what we have been saying all along, that the statements of poll do not match what the GCOM declaration was.
Okay. Looking at reports coming out of the recount and election day itself, there's a concern, especially alleged against the opposition, the party that you're against, and that is a lot of dead people would have voted in your stronghold, as well as overseas votes. Can you speak to those? Because a number, from what we understand, a number of votes.
Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. So what we have right now happening are several different things at the recount. So at the recount, they're being broadcast through audio, and we have observers, the CARICOM team here. So let me just say very clearly, Jermaine, that at the end of the election, every single observer group, CARICOM, the United Nations, the OAS, Carter Center, the Commonwealth Observer Group, all the observer groups, the private sector of Guyana, the Bar Association of Guyana, American Chamber of Commerce of Guyana, they all said the same thing, that the elections were smoothly run, and people who could have voted, and there were too few problems to call it irregular in any way. In other words, the elections were very regular. Now, in the polling places, in each polling place, the two main parties, the one in government right now, who I am saying very clearly are trying to rig the election, as well as the opposition party, have observers, what we call polling agents. They're there. When you come into the polling place to vote, you have to present an ID in the form of an ID card or passport, pictorial ID. And if you don't have an ID, every polling agent and the officials of GCOM have something called a folio, where someone's photograph, the voter's photograph, is imprinted thereon. And so everybody compares the person who walks into the polling place with the photograph on the pictures before them, on the folios before them. And so it would require a massive collaboration between opposition and government people and officials of GCOM to carry out what the present government is claiming, which is that the opposition had persons vote for who were dead. Now, two things: if persons there continues to be zero evidence. Yeah,
Ms. Manishan, just quickly, somebody has a question for you on the line. One of our callers. I don't know if you permit us to take the call to hear the question.
Of course.
Okay,
but
ahead.
Let me finish this first. First. It is highly, it would be very difficult for dead people or migrated people to vote. These are objections that are being made en masse. So what we have happening right now is as soon as the box is opened, the APNU representative counting agent in there begins to rattle off a set of numbers that say these people did not vote. Half of the times the people actually did not vote. Their names are not ticked. But in any event, so this is one of the efforts to delay the process. There's been absolutely no evidence so far to say that anybody who died voted or anybody who migrated voted. These are just allegations made. The present government, the political party who's making these objections, were prepared to get sworn in and had the president dress in excess of 4 times to get sworn in on these same results they're now saying emerged from a fraudulent process. So yes, there's absolutely no evidence of what is being alleged, and in the practical setting of the polling place, it would be extremely difficult for that to happen without collaboration with everybody in that polling place. And the polling place usually has officials, policemen and women, and political party observers and agents.
Okay. Hi, caller. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Probably lost that caller. So, Ms. Mannington, I have two quick questions for you. One,
Sure.
how do you now change this process? Because both parties have accepted the fact that, one, we should not have, you guys should not have been at this point in having a recount and having all the issues surrounding the dramas from basically 2 months ago. About 10 weeks later, you still do not have a firm decision on the way
Well, I
forward
want to
in
be
terms of
careful with
swearing a
that.
new
We've
government.
accepted that it should not have happened, but we are fully participating in the recount. It is something we called for, it is something we accept, and it is something we are bound to at the end of the process. Once it completes in this kind of transparent way that is happening.
Okay, so how long do you foresee legislation changes to actually prevent a reoccurrence from happening would actually be implemented?
Well, I'm not
Either
sure
parties.
legislation. Look, Jermaine, if you want a thief, there are tons of laws all over the world against people jumping into your yard and stealing your clothes or your chickens or your shoes that you leave outside. Yet people do it. So I'm not sure laws are going to stop people from stealing. What we have right now, Guyana has a really sordid history of rigged elections. And with the help of the Carter Center and our partners and allies around the world, we have a relatively strong system that would detect rigging, which is why we are where we are. It was not easy to just rig the election without a detection of same. In fact, yesterday, the OAS observer mission through former Prime Minister Bruce Golding said it was the most transparent attempt to alter numbers that he has ever seen. And he went on to say that it takes an extraordinarily courageous mind to present fictitious numbers when such a sturdy paper trail exists. I say that to say that it is not whether you can rig, it's whether you can rig and get away with it. We have a very a good system which would detect, like I said, there's a lot of transparency happening during the day with political parties, agents in the polling places and observers from around the world in the polling places, and measures to make sure the people, the elector, the citizen is actually the person who is voting. Will there ever be an attempt again? I hope not, but I could say this, enough exists right now for us to catch that attempt. Could we make it stronger? Of course we can, and I'm sure there's going to be an examination later on after this process to determine how and what. But I'm saying to you that what exists right now is strong enough for us to capture anyone who's trying to rig an election, which is why we have this process going on. Look, there was, it's not one or two or some observers who have said that this election or the tabulation was rigged for Region 4. Every single other person except one political party, the one who's benefiting from the inflated numbers, has declared the United States, Canada, the UK, the European Union, the CARICOM countries, the Organization of American States, all the local organizations, most of the citizens of this country have declared that these elections at the tabulation stage, there were attempts to rig the numbers. There's only one set of people, that's the leadership of a political party, and I make the distinction with leadership and membership and supporters, because supporters and members of that political party have openly come out, including former ministers. The president's son-in-law, who was a minister in his government, has publicly said more than once that the numbers simply do not add up and that they must be redone and redone in a transparent way, and that he cannot accept those numbers. That is the president's son-in-law. Many like him have come forward. So there's a small number of persons in the leadership of the political party called the AP and UAFC. They're the only people who will benefit from it, and they're the only people who are saying that there's nothing wrong with the inflated numbers. Every single other person has criticized the process that led to those inflated numbers.
Okay.
The tabulation process, that is.
Just quickly, because I have to take a break, but we kind of run out of time. If you could just give me quickly, because we've heard the process is expected to take 25 days, but based on the level of counting that has been
Well, it's going
ongoing.
very slowly. So except we add more stations, right now we have 10 stations counting. There are a lot of objections that are, like I said, the present, the AP and UAFC, their agents are instructed, and they're doing it across the board, to go in there and just rattle off objections that are, listen, we know in Guyana some places that are AP and U strongholds, just like there are some places that are PPP strongholds. They would go to those places in those boxes and say that their dead people voted. Now, if in their stronghold dead people voted, then I'm pretty sure they didn't vote for us. It seems to be a very standard exercise just to make delays and objections so that at the end of this process, perhaps they can benefit from some kind of claim about irregularity.
Okay, Ms. Manichan, thanks for joining us. Thanks for giving the opposition's perspective on the March 2nd elections. I know we'll keep in touch and, to get your perspective on the final result.
I just want to say very quickly, we're deeply grateful that we've gotten the support of CARICOM and the region in this. I am very, very encouraged when I get a call from Jermaine from St. Kitts to say you'd like to hear from us, because it means we're not alone in this battle. And we never know, there should never, ever be, people should never feel lonely when they're pursuing democratic practices and norms. And so we're very encouraged by this kind of support and interest. And we ask you to stay in touch with us so that we're never alone in this kind of stuff.
Well, the thing was we wanted to get both perspectives on the recount and so forth. So that's why we had to have gotten the opposition's perspective.
No, I was talking about interest in Guyana in this period, that we're not alone during this time. The interest in our country, not necessarily our perspective, but the interest in a country that 2 months later has not seen election results and what the consequences of that could be. We're very grateful for that kind of interest.
All right. Thanks, Ms. Manichan, and I hope the process completes in a timely manner. Thanks. Well, there you had it, folks. That was former Minister of Education in Guyana and Member of Parliament and opposition representative. Like I said, the process, the Guyana election took place on March 2nd, and as of March 14th, there still has been no official result tabulated and or announced. I mean, sometime last month, the process was halted. The Elections Commission announced that the government won, and then there were a number of legal challenges. So at the end of the day, we're at the recount stage there in Guyana. But as we take a break now, we'll come back and we'll be discussing agriculture in the age of COVID-19. What can we do and what can be done at the government level in terms of actually pushing agriculture, food sustainability? We saw the challenges that we encountered when it came to food during the lockdowns. We were too dependent on imported food, as many would have said, many officials would have indicated. But we'll have Director of Agriculture Melvin James basically to share his perspective, and we'll hear a little bit about from Nevis what they're doing in the age of COVID-19 to ensure food security. But we'll come back with that discussion just after the break.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss this. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
Flo's new combo plan, the people's plan. Combo, new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Flo.
I want a combo, but not for my belly. I feel me cell phone, so me call anybody. Call Mr. Man, call Granny. On the island, Flo, come boom.
Yes, there is no need for to force no more. Cause with Flo combo plan, you're paying less for more.
Flo got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, No matter which network you they on, just use your flow.
Dial star 129 number sign to activate your combo plan today.
Why not stay in? Turn off the alarm clock and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz. For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Voices. Here I'm your host, Jermaine Abel. Like I said before we took the break, we'll be discussing agriculture in the age of COVID-19. How do we deal with that pandemic? We have the hurricane season and we're still trying to ensure food sustainability here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have with us on the line Director of Agriculture here on St. Kitts, Melvin James. Mr. James, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. We know we're on lockdown. We're still pushing for food security here in St. Kitts and Nevis. How do we, as people, how are you at the Department of Agriculture transitioning now through the age of COVID-19? And what are your plans from the department's level to ensure we actually modernize and push more to ensure we are food sustainable?
Thank you, Jermaine, for the opportunity to speak with our people at home and abroad. A lot of folks who call in have always been talking to us about food security, especially the incidents we've had with hurricanes, and there were brief periods where the trade in food had been interrupted. But it never seemed as though we got the message. Now, COVID is another opportunity, and perhaps the opportunity that made so many persons stop and think. Even as we make plans here at the Department of Agriculture to try and make our country food secure, I'm so concerned. Sometimes I get very worried because from our end, we have been tasked with producing the food. But that is only one component of it. The other part where our local persons must gravitate to it and use it is of great concern to me, because it's one thing to produce, but our people do not show enough love, enough desire, enough utility for local, and that is critical. But let me first tell you what we're doing. Yes, I think a lot of people are aware that government put aside a sum of money in the amount of $10 million, and we're using it for awareness and for production. So we got our farmers to agree that we need to produce more of the things that we eat, so that we get a greater sense that if you're not looking after your own security, then we can starve ourselves as a nation. And our survival and our nutrition ought to depend on us. It took a critical period for us to realize that, but bad, but still better than never, both in terms of crops and in terms of livestock. And even the backyard gardeners as well. Every space that is possible, it is important that we utilize our local plants and animals. The local ones are the ones that stand up better to the adverse conditions, like the dry season. So we have things like sweet potato, pigeon peas, a lot of the pumpkin varieties, right? And we're encouraging persons to use those. Let's go back to the spinach. I was asking someone the other day about Masam there. It's the older folks who might know that. That used to be a source of our green leafy vegetables before we knew about broccoli and cauliflower. So we need to go back to a lot of the things that grow easily, grow naturally, the bud pepper and that kind of thing, right? And use them, some of the old beans that used to string along the fence, right? And that is very critical. And we have planted, recently, we've planted about close to 70 acres in a combination of cabbage, carrots, squash, fruits and vegetables that we can utilize. But, as I say, having produced them, if the weather allows us to, then if our people don't gravitate to them, if our people don't buy them, then the producers will not be in a position to earn any money to continue the trade. And that is a very critical thing that we need to address as well. Production is one thing, but the awareness that we have to develop a culture for our own is critically important as well, Mr. Abel.
You spoke about utility as well as education. But how do you package the two together to sell it to people? Because it's one thing for you to tell me, hey, look, it's good to eat local, but I'm seeing a beautiful package of something unhealthy in the supermarkets, and I'm going to go to that rather than go for maybe a nice ground potato or sweet potato or edo on the shelves.
Certainly, yes, and that is why it is not about the department alone, and that is why I said I am the producer. But it is a multifaceted thing. We also need the nutrition people on board. We also need the influential people on board, those who can sell the story and those who know how to present the commodity. Because, yes, things have to be presented and packaged in the right way. Marketing is about appeal. Marketing is about presentation. And so we must have those entities on board that does a similar thing that influences us to utilize. Just like how you can see an ad, and when you see the ad, you believe everything. You don't bother to check out anything else, because even though it might be high sugar, even though it might be very salty, it's put over in such an amazing way that you're taking in. Similarly, we need our local people on board who can craft the message like that so that the better things are utilized. I mean, look at it, Abel. Right now, our country is spending so much money on health as it relates to non-communicable diseases. It says to us that a lot of the things which we gravitate to, perhaps through advertisement, they're clearly not good for us because they're making us sick. So we need now to invest also in the story that says that what we have here is time that we utilize them. But of course, yes, we need to package it. We need to get all those persons on board. Don't just leave it up to the producer. I'm the producer. You don't task me with also marketing it, with also promoting it. Let's bring all our local energies together and do a total oneness. Let me say one other thing. We have been kept down a lot. People pull this thing out the air. What about the price? What about the price? But we also need people to help to show the general population that you're receiving a superior product at a slightly higher price, which translates into a better set of values. And so that it's not just about price, it's about the nutrition, it's about the health, the absence of dangerous chemicals, so that all in all, you are receiving a superior product at a better price.
Okay, you talk about superior product and increasing production. What are you doing in terms of having more people, more households with actual yard space get involved in backyard planting, farming, kitchen gardens?
Well, backyard has a role in food security. Generally, there's so much to be done in our agriculture to position it into a position where it is a significant economic contributor. And the more significant it is, the greater it will contribute to food security, because the things that we cultivate in here, they are not fibers, they are actually food. So if you develop the food industry, you're also coming closer to food security. But yes, backyard has a role. And recently, we gave out nearly 5,000 seedlings to backyard gardeners. We also have a backyard staff. We have a complement of 2-3 staff who work with backyard gardeners, share information, give them ideas, assist them along the way, so that in truth and in fact, what they're doing would be able to contribute significantly. So we do a lot, not just backyard, but community spots. In fact, just about 2 months ago, we opened a community garden in Sandy Point for about 5 or 7 homeowners on 2 acres, where they have their own plots, bigger than a little small backyard. We also worked with the Ministry of Tourism last year, where we launched a competition for community and backyard gardens, and we're doing it again this year. So it's not just about the kind of long-term bona fide farmer, but we also assist the homeowners in coming on board, so that the more we can get and of a greater variety, the better it will be. So yes, we have been doing a lot in that area as well.
Okay, you talk about the general consensus is you're increasing production in terms of whether it be the backyard farming or the larger aspect of farming.
Yes.
But how do you now prevent most of what is produced from going to waste? Because that's another issue affecting not only St. Kitts but the entire region.
And that is what I meant when I said earlier on, sometimes I get scared. Because when I calculate what we're seeking to produce, may I remind us that our production is rain-fed. Our agriculture is almost 100% rain-fed, although I would really like to see us switch to protected agriculture, hydroponics, more technologically based agriculture. I think that is what is needed for our country, where the young people are well informed, they're smart, and they certainly don't like the drudgery of the open field thing. So if we're going to get them involved, that's where we need to go. However, right now, as we do our calculations and we're asking for increased production, take, for example, this crop I have here, squash. We are asking people to produce 10 acres more than we normally do. And if that happens and everything goes well, we expect to get about 70 metric tons of squash. If you plant them in April, May, June, by June we'll get 70 metric tons of squash. In 2018, a typical year, we got 40 metric tons of squash in 12 months. Now I can get 70 metric tons in June alone. How do I properly dispose of that? That is what bothers me. And as I said to us, if we produce these things and they go to waste, then it's money wasted, it's money lost. So the 2 things I'm looking at. 1, that is why we speak about increased consumption. We need to engage our importers so that we ask them to make room for all of this additional stuff that we're producing. Why do we bring it in if we have it here, and especially if we can meet your conditions, your presentation, your price? And the other element about it, we can look at our neighbors in the north and in the OECS, how we can export it to them. So we can export, that's immediate. We can reduce our imports. And of course, in the more medium term, you may be able to convert those to agro-processing. Those are nice theoretical concepts. They take a little while. Okay. But really and truly, all of us as a people need to have that sense of awareness of local, so that we purchase, we demand it. Instead of passing it in the market and passing it on the road and heading to the supermarket for the imported, if we can gravitate more to our local, then we'll have less wastage less spoilage, more utility, and it make a lot more sense.
Okay, and finally, my final question to you, Mr. James. Are we prepared in the agriculture sector? Because we had to deal with COVID-19. Are we totally prepared for the hurricane season?
Are we totally prepared for the hurricane season? And usually, it's kind of paradoxical because usually at this time, people plant mostly below the ground things. May is a month where people plant yam and some degree of sweet potato. But this is generally a dry time. So that the quantity of things that we plant in the field is usually less. But hear this. This year, we tried to intensify our planting because we were, early when the COVID started, we all wondered if the food boats will stop coming. And so to prevent starvation, we said, look, let's get it on. Let's do something. So it means now that it is possible that the hurricane, if we don't plant soon enough, the hurricane season can come and meet things in the ground and they get destroyed. Fortunately, a lot of the stuff we do are 3 months. So if we plant in April, no, this is May, June, July, August. Once we get the stuff in the ground this month or next month, then we will be able to avoid the heart of the hurricane season, assuming that things would be like they have been in the recent times, that it's September and October that is most critical. We have some storage facilities. We'll put the things in storage. So basically, the risk is a little higher, but, we have to do it so that we ensure that we don't go into a period like this without having anything of our own, just in case the boats were to stop coming. As it turned out, it doesn't look as if there's going to be that kind of challenge. But we ought not to be depending on food from outside. Just plant at the right time so that they're harvested before the hurricane comes, and we will be able to get them stored and, get out of harm's way.
Okay, if you could just reassure people how we're going to deal with this COVID-19. What is it going to be like coming out of this pandemic? Maybe in a month, 2 months, 3 months, and the way how this has transformed the agriculture sector.
Well, I think it is still consisting of a lot of moving parts. The original plans that we made about supporting both crop and livestock production, I think we also have an opportunity now to even go back to the drawing board. I think it is an opportune time for us as a country to focus on better organizing our agriculture. We're in a heavy blame game right now. People blaming the government, we're blaming the department, we're blaming the farmers. But the truth is that it is because things are very ad hoc, very disorganized, and we need to see. The COVID, I think, has taught us the need for us to have a well-organized, well-developed agricultural sector. It has been said over and over. I think COVID has brought the reality to a large cross-section of persons. Enough of us now understand that we need to rely on ourselves. And not only do we need to, God has blessed us with the facilities. God has blessed us with the natural factors where we can do something about it. And that we must not see agriculture now as something unimportant. We must see it as our own livelihood, our own way forward and upward, and use that opportunity to really restructure, reorganize. It may mean that we have to leave out the bottom tier of the practitioners and work with the younger, more skillful, more adept individuals, but do what we have to do so that agriculture could be put on such a footing that it will really help us to secure ourselves in adversities, because I don't think this is going to be the last adversity. Nobody knew it was coming. And similarly, other things can happen, and you need to have your own stuff. You could store. In some countries, they have tons and tons of grain and so on stored for adversities. We haven't started. So we really need to sit down, get our act together, and support this kind of thing for our own survival.
Okay, Mr. James, thanks for just giving us an update in terms of COVID-19 and the agriculture sector.
All the best and blessings to all of us. And I end by saying, please, I'm begging us, help. I mean, yes, we need to do this marketing, this promotion and so on. And even as we seek to do that, let us instill in ourselves and our young people the value of supporting our own. And when you go to the supermarket, ask them about local. Let them put more local on the shelves. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. James. Thanks, Mr. James, for joining us there. There you had it. Agriculture in the age of COVID-19. How do we go forward now in, one, protecting ourselves and also protecting our own food security? As you would have known, as I would have mentioned on yesterday's program, we have a dependency on, one, imported foods, as we would have seen the stress on the food sector, the service sector, where a lot we were dependent on the ships actually coming in to replenish the shelves of the supermarkets. And then, we all do it. We all have a dependency on fried and cooked foods, which oftentimes are unhealthy for us, which again spills over into the health sector. And as Mr. James would have indirectly alluded to, we have a dependency, we have an issue rather, of non-communicable diseases here in St. Kitts and Nevis, which time and time again has been alluded to by both Ministers of Health, Senator Wendy Phipps, as well as Minister Eugene Hamilton. We need to get involved more in the backyard farming, and that is what we need. That's the direction we need to go presently when it comes to the whole COVID-19 and food security. That was our program for today. I mean, you can join us again tomorrow. For the callers who care to share, you can join us tomorrow. Share your thoughts on this topic and any other that's of interest to you. I was Jermaine Abel, your host for the second hour of Voices today. Until tomorrow, do enjoy the rest of your day.
Why not stay in? Turn off the alarm clock and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz. For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night